everyone, and welcome to today's episode. It's Good Friday today, so I thought we'd talk about some Easter themed romances. So, we're going to be talking about the Easter in Gilead series, which is contemporary Christian romance, and I'm actually one of the authors in this series. There's 4 books in the series, and it's obviously Christian fiction. So these stories are set in Kansas and they're based around an annual passion play that happens in a fictional town called Gilead in Kansas. Now, each of the stories happens simultaneously. So we have a simultaneous timeline and you'll see characters popping in and out of each book as it all progresses through the passion play, which is held in the lead up to Easter. So these books can be read in any order and all the main characters appear in the other books or get mentioned in some way, shape, or form. So there's no massive spoilers. But if you'd prefer to read in order, and I can hear Elizabeth Maddrey's voice in my head saying, yes, we need to have an order. And then I can hear Valerie Comer's voice in my head saying, what's Narelle going to do? Is she going to do it in order or is she going to be a bit random? So I'm going to please Elizabeth Maddrey, and Beth will be very happy to know I'm going to talk about these books in order that they released. So the story worlds also are connected to other books by the authors in the series. So the authors are myself, Narelle Atkins, and Valerie Comer, and Elizabeth Maddrey, and Heather Gray. And all of these books may not stay together on Amazon as a series. The covers may change because they are interconnected with each of our individual story worlds. So not everything stays the same. So if you're watching this episode at some point in the future and it doesn't look identical to the covers that I have shown on screen, if you're watching at YouTube, then that's why. But anyway, the order of the books that I'm going to talk about is Her Unlikely Hero by Valerie Comer. Then we'll talk about Her Billionaire Benefactor by Elizabeth Maddrey. Then the third book is His Runaway Crush by Heather Gray. And the last book is my book, Her Cowboy Blind Date by Narelle Atkins. So there'll be more information on the Easter in Gilead series at my blog, and I'll have a link in the show notes, and that's at my website, narelleatkins.com. So let's talk about the Easter in Gilead books. The first book that we're going to talk about is Her Unlikely Hero by Valerie Comer. So I'm just going to read the book description because that will be a lot faster than me rambling along talking about all the different aspects of the book. So, redemption and second chances abound in this small town single mum romance with a former bad boy set at Easter. Connor Hamlin's Kansas farm boss offers wages through the winter if he'll try out for the annual passion play. Connor's been drifting, but sticking around sounds good. Figuring he can channel Judas, he auditions and is cast as Jesus. Ugh. But maybe he'll finally understand all the religious nuts in his life. Single mum Zoe Matthews helps in the wardrobe department for the local passion play, as well as participating in crowd scenes of her young daughter. Zoe might be intrigued by the unlikely guy cast as Jesus in this year's production, but she's not looking for romance, especially not with an unbeliever too similar to her bad boy ex. Connor doesn't deserve a second chance to make amends for his past, nor another chance at love. He definitely doesn't deserve the forgiveness of the Saviour he's portraying, but God is a God of redemption and second chances. Her heart longs for a hero. He's no one's idea of a champion. So, as you can see, there's a lot happening in this book, and Connor is very displeased to have to play the role of Jesus. And I just loved watching Connor's faith journey in the story. It was definitely a highlight in the book. And we have Zoe, who's a single mum with her adorable daughter, and she volunteers in the wardrobe department, which is where she initially comes into contact with Connor. And I just love their romance. It's got second chances, and I really loved how there was strong redemption and forgiveness themes in the book, and also quite a prominent faith element on the page. So if you were looking for a contemporary Christian romance, it actually has the gospel message on the page, then Valerie Comer's book, Her Unlikely Hero, is definitely one to pick up and read. Now, as I said, the books are connected to other series by the author. So Valerie Comer has a series called Sweet River Ranch, and the first book in the series, A Surprise Wedding for the Cowboy, has one of the side characters in Her Unlikely Hero is the hero in this book. So that's the book to read after you read this one. Or if you've read Valerie's Sweet River Ranch series and haven't read Her Unlikely Hero, then backtrack and read this one. Okay, so let's move on to the second book that we'll talk about, which is Her Billionaire Benefactor by Elizabeth Maddrey, and I'll just read the book description. Billionaires get a lot of requests for money, but when my great-grandmother asked me to set up a scholarship at her alma mater, I was happy to oblige, anything to make my Gigi smile. But I made the mistake of mentioning that the Bible college where she met her one true love was gearing up for their annual Easter play. Gigi's response? Stay in Kansas and lend a helping hand. Such a terrible idea. Not only is it challenging to run $1 billion business remotely, it also means spending more time with Wendy Hall, the beautiful young widow who makes me want to help with more than just the play. So I'll do my part at the concession stand and I'll see what I can do about the secrets bringing Wendy down. Easter is a time for new beginnings. A second chance at love might be the last thing Wendy wants, but I'm here to show her it's exactly what she needs. And so the book description is in Preston's point of view, and he is a delightful billionaire character. And I love Elizabeth Maddrey's billionaires because these guys are down to earth. They're not power hungry. They're not controlling. They're not using their money to manipulate all sorts of people and situations. They're actually very genuine people with a good heart. And that's what I love about Her Billionaires. And Preston definitely ticks the boxes for all of those. So he's come down to Kansas from Chicago and he's on a mission from his great grandmother, and he ends up volunteering at the concession stand at the play, and he meets Wendy because he has money to donate to the Bible college. Now, Wendy works in the admin department at the Bible college, and she has just had a really hard time, and she is struggling with grief and loss and has a lot of stuff going on. And I just loved how Preston looked after her in the story and really helped her. And it was a second chances romance, and it was beautiful, and it's definitely one to read. Now, this book, as I said, is connected into another series that Elizabeth Maddrey has done, and it's book one in her Billionaire Next Door series called The Billionaire's Nanny. And I think The Billionaire's Nanny may actually be my favorite book that Elizabeth Maddrey has written as well. So if you haven't read that book, go read it. So that's our second book in the Gilead series, which brings us to our third book, which is His Runaway Crush by Heather Gray. So here's the book description. Can once upon a time turn into happily ever after. Letty Stanton might live in Gilead, but Heavenly Brew is her home. After all, home is where the heart is. Letty has spent a decade running from a past she never wanted to face and keeping at arm's length all the people who hold her close to their hearts. When a handsome stranger blows into town, though, he upsets the calm and comfortable life she's worked so hard to cultivate. Dawson Bauer is new to small town life. From the 4-year-old who couldn't whisper if her life depended on it, to the middle-aged man who only speaks in grunts and glares, Gilead is filled with quirky people who think privacy is a mythical creature. Not to mention that everybody is obsessed with Easter, and he'd be happy to never hear that word again. Then there's the enigmatic woman who runs the town's coffee shop. There's something about her, ... What happens when a guy who mostly means well and a girl with mile-high walls collide? Sparks fly, secrets come to light, and everyone in Gilead has an opinion. So, as you probably guessed, Letty runs the coffee shop in town called Heavenly Brew, and she's also in charge of the concession stand at the Passion Play. And she has a few secrets that she prefers to stay hidden, but of course, that's not what's going to happen in the story. So Dawson's new to town. He's got a job as a sound tech at the Bible college. And what he didn't realize is part of his job at the Bible college means that he's the sound guy for the Passion Play. So he kind of can't avoid the whole Easter thing, which he was hoping to avoid. And both of these characters have trust issues, and I just loved how their romance played out, and particularly the healing from past hurts that happen in the story. And it's again a second chances book, and it's great. So I highly recommend that one as well from the Gilead series. And if you enjoy reading Heather's books, also check out Skye, which is book one in her Rainbow Fall series. Which brings us to the last book, which is my book, Her Cowboy Blind Date by Narelle Atkins. And here's the book description. He's a small town guy, a cowboy at heart. She's a city girl from the other side of the world. Will a blind date lead to a love that lasts a lifeline? Farm mechanic Sam Williams is on the cusp of realizing his dream of being a rancher after inheriting a share in his family's Colorado ranch. He's keen to make plans and leave Gilead in the dust after his friend's Easter Saturday wedding. First, he needs a plus one for the wedding to avoid a super awkward encounter with his high school girlfriend who has just married the best man. After a devastating public betrayal by her high profile ex, Beck Montford is hiding out in Kansas. She's calling herself Becky, licking her wounds and focusing on things that make her happy. Drawn to the annual Passion Play at Gilead Bible College where she's living, she volunteers to work behind the scenes. Since Becky is only in Gilead until June, a blind date with a suitable plus one before the wedding seems like the perfect solution for Sam. No strings and no commitment. But the blind date turns into a not so fake relationship when Sam and Becky must work together on the Passion Play. Can they overcome past emotional wounds and geographical distance to create a future together? And opposites attract, different worlds, blind date and fake relationship, contemporary Christian romance. And so these are my people. And I just loved writing Sam and Becky's story. It was so fun. And there's an Aussie connection in these books. So Never Find Another You, that's part of the Trinity Lakes romance series, is also connected to this book via Zach and Billy, who are my hero and heroine in my Sydney Sweethearts book 3, which is called Seaside Proposal. And Billy and Zach basically do a trip through the US and they stop in at Kansas, at Gilead, and visit Becky in this story. And they also stop in at Trinity Lakes and visit my characters in Never Find Another You. So that was very fun to write that story world connection as well. So, in summary, I would recommend the books in the Easter in Gilead series to readers who like contemporary Christian romance, and particularly if you like your contemporary Christian romance with Easter themes in it that are gospel focused. The faith element is prominent in these stories, and it's really fun. Like, I really enjoyed writing about the Passion Play, particularly writing how my characters experience seeing the theatre production of that as well. The stories have redemption and forgiveness themes, and the theatre production was so much fun. And that's in all of the stories to some extent as well. And you'll like this series if you like small town romances that are set in Kansas. If you like cowboys, there's a few of the books that will work for you. If you like billionaires that are down to earth, then Elizabeth Maddrey's book's the one to read. If you like stories centered around a small town cafe, the cafe appears in most of the books where Letty is, which is Heather Gray's characters. The Bible college setting is prominent in a couple of the books as well, including my book and Elizabeth Maddrey's book. And the Aussie connection is fun with my characters who are from Sydney, Australia. And I loved working with the authors in this series and writing this book. And I hope this Easter you'll have a chance to look at them and read them. Thanks for joining me today. Do any of the books in the Easter in Gilead series sound like a book that you'd like to read? Or have you already read books from the series? What did you think? you can let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, you can send a text to me via a link in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like the episode and leave a comment at YouTube. You can also email me via my website by filling out the contact form, and that's at narelleatkins.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe at your favorite podcasting app or subscribe at YouTube so you won't miss an episode. If you've enjoyed watching this episode, please share the link with a friend, especially a friend who might be interested in reading contemporary Christian romance and particularly books that have an Easter theme. All the links I've mentioned in the episode will be available via a link in the show notes. And if you're listening this Easter, I hope you have a wonderful and blessed Easter where we focus on the joy of our Saviour, Jesus Christ. And thank you so much for tuning in, and see you next time.